Hello, Eric.
Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, except for my voice. A little under the weather, getting over something, but
Always,
hopefully it's not
always.
too bad.
It's always irritating, so nothing new. Just kidding.
No worse than usual.
Okay, question for you today. So I've been, picking out our booths for upcoming events, and the amount of vendors at these events, that has to be overwhelming for the attendees to figure out. How do you even get the information that you need from every vendor in that time frame when there's so many and there's so much information?
Well, a lot of the events we go to are relatively small. We're talking maybe dozens of vendors. You're not even talking about the big ones like RSAC and Black Hat, where there are thousands of vendors in these
So
massive, and you can't visit them all. Maybe at some of the smaller conferences you can go see what they all have to say. But yeah, I agree with you. It is incredibly overwhelming. And that's not even all the vendors that are out there. Those are just the ones that paid for a booth. So yeah,
yep.
that is a big challenge, and it's a little different for us on the partnering side than it is for the customers. But yeah, that's a good challenge to try and peel back. So
So
should
how
I?
how does one break that down?
Well, I think we've got some splaining to do.
We do.
Okay, so our question is how to deal with and work with the massive number of options there are out there in the cybersecurity space. I think it's a good problem that there's a lot of options, but it can be very overwhelming. Uh,
Yeah, that was I'm like, I would feel overwhelmed trying to figure it all out. What do I need? Who do I go to?
well, and
What's
it's
the best?
definitely an area we try to help, with our clients to deal with and know and vet. And there's multiple discussions we could have here, but I think that overall question of how do you deal with just such a massive number of options, too many options, that overwhelming piece is a good thing to start peeling back and go down some different angles of it. So yeah, the question of how do I deal with the overabundance of choice maybe is a way to phrase it. Well,
Yes, information.
in that vein, we have a guest with us today, from one of our partners again, from Fortra. Faraz, I'll let him introduce himself as we usually do to do a little more justice, but he has a perspective on this. He's been in the industry 25 plus years, like some of us, and has been around and knows what some of those challenges are like and has some ideas on how to deal with them as well. So, Faraz, if you want to give a little bit better of an intro than I did and explain what you do and where your perspective comes from.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Chelsea and Eric. Thanks for having me first and foremost. Really appreciated that intro and that discussion because I've got a lot to add. A little bit more about me. I've been an industry veteran for close to 30 years, and about 25 years of that was focused on cybersecurity. And and I've seen how this industry has changed. Think about where we were 30 years ago and where we are today, and I'm looking forward to where we're going tomorrow. Uh, so, what a little bit about Fortra and a little bit about me. I run global channels and alliances at Fortra, and Fortra itself may not be a name you know day to day, but we've been in business a long time, over 40 plus years. We have a very large, comprehensive security portfolio and technology portfolio. We used to be called Help Systems, and we have a lot of brands that you might know, like Tripwire, Alert Logic, Digital Guardian, Fish Labs, Titus, and we've got some great solutions around that. So, but what I really found interesting was your conversation around these shows. Yeah, you go to these shows and everybody gets overwhelmed. You got people everywhere. You go to large shows like RSA Conference, which you got 50,000 people uh, in attendance, and just navigating the floor is hard enough to let alone understand solutions. You got, I'd say maybe a third of those people are actually in security. So it is a very difficult task that we all navigate, and we all need to provide our customers the right way to help navigate it.
In reference to how many are at these shows, we're often catering our marketing to whatever the show is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I feel like there's got to be a better way to actually be navigating it other than, just hearing what someone's talking about at a show all of the time. I love shows, obviously, but I just think that it's an overwhelming industry, and I didn't realize that until I got into it.
Yeah.
So how many options there are.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to one of these large shows, like let's say RSA conference, if you can attend every single vendor's booth and talk to them, I mean, bless you. I just don't even think that's possible. Actually, they should have a trophy that you've won RSA conference if you've actually done that.
They do. That's
Um,
people walking around with wagons of swag.
Yes, I'm like, have you seen the bags? Yeah.
I've literally seen them towing wagons behind them with all this stuff falling out of it.
yeah. And they probably have at least 50 fidget spinners. So,
Oh, yeah.
I think you need to have a plan. And I think people go in where they have marked the companies that they do want to talk to and whose solutions that they want to really, hear more about. A lot of companies make announcements. Some of these announcements is literally just marketing speak. And you have to navigate that. And so ultimately you walk away and your head is spinning. They keep saying the term, I guess it's marketing speak, drinking from a fire hose. And you are. But what you really ought to do is prioritize what you want and what you want to hear to really address the problems that you need to think about day to day and the reason why you're there. And that really narrows down your focus. And then do all that before you go to the after parties and have your Bud Lights and sliders and whatever you need to do. But you've got to have that plan.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
Number one, come to the after parties because I'm usually throwing them. But I think that there's so much benefit at these conferences and stuff, but just in general, how do people sift through figuring out? I mean, there's so many options. How do you sift through what is right for you? And
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that look like?
Well, I think Faraz's point to begin with is a good starting point. Know where your gaps are, and that's been a big mantra of mine anyway. Don't just go buying something because it looks cool.
How do
You
you
might
know though?
have something that has that. Again, that you do that before the conference, and I
But
think
how do you,
help you if you know where you don't have solutions in place, what areas you do need to replace something with, or where you're not strong, and then you can have a little bit more of a pointed mission when you go looking for solutions because you know what types of things you're looking for. Not just show me what's cool and new or what's better than what I have. No, you need to shore things up is going to help.
where do you start that process though? How do you start that process?
So let me give you an example. The other day, I was thinking about some renovations I need to make on my home. And I have a laundry list of items that need either fixing or renovating or improving. But I really had to prioritize what is the biggest thing? What do I need now? What is something that needs to improve right away? Then what is a nice to have? And what is eventually down the road something that I need to address? And that could be from a new roof to carpeting to, redoing a bathroom to fixing your front door. There's fixes, then there's replacement, and then there's cost associated with all of that. And think about that. Everybody lives somewhere and they've got to do something in their home. That's the same thing that you would do with selecting your solutions. And then one of the first things that I would do is go to my trusted advisor, and that is Home Depot. Okay. Home Depot provides the solutions and they can help you out and they can provide some assistance, but they also recommend, whereas I have the opportunity to, listen or not listen. But when it comes to tech, you've got so much that you have installed and you've got to go to your trusted advisors and talk to them because you've developed a relationship with them and they can also talk to you about what's new within their own purview and what they're providing or what recommendations they can make. And that starts with your existing vendors and your existing solution providers. So that's just a small take that I have.
It's
Well,
fun. I'm grinning really wide because I'm doing a lecture in a couple weeks on that topic of making sure you're tackling the right tasks and not, how to prioritize, because I often see that neglected. People go at the honeydew items that are easy, the things in the
Yeah.
home that, oh, I can fix that. I'll just do that, even if it's not as important as maybe
Mhm.
fixing the roof. But that's overwhelming. You can't fix the roof yourself, so you keep putting it off.
Yeah.
It's also a matter
Look,
of figuring out which things you can do in the time you have. I've got an hour on a Saturday afternoon. What can I do in an hour to be useful and get something done and make progress? And sometimes you have to vet the tasks based on availability. Others
well,
are what do I need to outsource? And it's a great analogy that I've actually considered using in the lecture around house tasks that translate directly to cyber.
Eric loves an analogy, but this is so relevant to my everyday life right now. It's been 2 months of construction in my home, and so we had to literally do everything that you just mentioned, prioritize what it was, needed to be addressed first, and all of those things. So it's funny to hear it worded that way, but so real.
yeah. Yeah. And then don't forget the little things too, because while we think big, right? We think big and big, but you've got to remember the day-to-day items that keep you going. And when you're providing network solutions, security solutions, you've got to think about those security items that is a must-have day to day. And to me, from a home perspective, think about things like smoke detectors. Not the sexiest thing in the world, but you're not going to live in a place without them, right? And things like door locks. Again, you start there, but then you talk about the bigger items and the need to haves, and then there's the nice to haves, like a walk-in humidor and a steam room, right? I mean, those are great things that everybody would love to talk about, but no one's actually going to really do that in the masses. So, and there are solutions in security that are like that.
Well, and they are, like you said, nice to haves. You can do that, and it might be a valid thing to do and invest in when you have the time, but don't do it instead of fixing the roof.
Right.
And it's getting those priorities right is vital. And in cyber, I see it very often not being done for various reasons, either because it seems too daunting, I'm overwhelmed, this is too scary of a project, or
Mhm.
this one I know I'm comfortable with, I like, or this one, maybe one of the bosses said, do this. And he's not
Mhm.
right. He wants it prioritized because he thinks it's important, and you don't want to make the argument back to him that this other project really needs to be done first. And sometimes balancing all of those different potential priorities is really overwhelming as well.
So, question about that. Do you think there should be a big emphasis on thinking ahead, though, too? What could go wrong next? Um, because I know that, back to the home reference, we had a leak and we replaced a couple pipes and then we had another leak.
Mhm.
And instead of waiting for the next leak, we just said replace all of the pipes. Like,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
we didn't have
So,
to deal with this later.
You got ahead of it.
yeah. Yeah, so the leaks are your vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
okay? And then raining and snow are your threats. And you always got to think about where you're vulnerable. Think about that. That's why we have something called, oh, wait a minute, vulnerability management. You actually look at all the areas where you are open for possible, entrance. And then there's actually plugging the holes where you're actually addressing them and a point solution, or you can redo everything just as you've done with your pipes. It all comes down to what you're comfortable with, what you can afford, and what you're willing to do to address the situation. And how vital is it for you to do that? Are you living in a very difficult area, or are you out in the country where there's nobody around? How sensitive is the information within the home, or the valuables, the crown jewels within your house? Always think that way, in terms of how you're going to design your solution. You could put quick fixes in, to like tape
Mhm.
around the leaks, or you could put super glue, bubble gum, but that's not going to last. So you got to think for the now, but I think it makes more sense to think for the future.
Okay, I like that you said that. Like, that's not going to last. You can quick fix some
Mm-hmm.
things, but are you putting something in place that's going to keep you protected in the future as well?
Yeah.
Identify that this is just a stopgap. It's a temporary thing. It's a patch, and say in 3 months we're going to come back and we're going to
Yeah.
revisit this and we're going to do it right. But it'll get us over it now and allow us to focus on something else that's a higher priority.
Yeah.
And that's all part of that prioritization and having a plan to deal with things in the future as well.
Yeah. And always remember, even when you have your home or your security posture at a company, it's never 100% foolproof. You don't know if that tornado is coming. You don't know if a hurricane or a unforeseen blizzard happens. You don't know if cyber criminals have targeted you, or that malware piece can cut through into your network. You just have to be prepared to the best of your ability with the right tools aligned with your company, so that you can protect the potential attack. Because nothing is foolproof. I could have a tree fall on my house. You just don't know.
I was just going to say, I was at a conference a few months back, and there was a hurricane. Came home, and my best friend here had two trees fault block her yard. I'm like, you can't predict the environment, is basically that analogy. Like,
Yeah.
you just can't
Yeah.
predict the environment.
And to go into the industry, the cyber landscape constantly changes. It's a
Yep.
cat and mouse game of
Well, and that's what I was going to say
really.
is one of the interesting things about this industry is it's never done. You will never check off cybersecurity done. It is going to change. It's going to evolve, and you have to evolve with it. So you also have to get introspective. And even that thing that you did 6 months ago, 3 years ago, you have to go back and say, is that still valid? Is that still solved, or have things changed? Should I be looking at redoing that thing before it becomes more of a problem? And factoring that into the priorities is
How
challenging
often should you be doing that?
as often as
Well,
possible.
yeah, I think you need to evaluate as often as possible. I mean, it's not a set it and forget it situation.
Yeah.
You've got to think about your posture, and you got to think about whether you can utilize it, and does it work for you? Okay, and is it solving what you intended it for it to do?
And then periodically, is there a better way I could be doing it now that's more efficient or safer or better in some other way or easier from an administrative
Mhm.
standpoint, especially when it comes to tech solutions and cybersecurity? It leads to the idea of over time, there's evolution. Even though you checked the box a year ago and the product is still okay, there might be improvements in other solutions or in other consolidations that make things easier for you. So
Yeah.
let me back up and pause for just a second, and then I want to move forward because we talked about maybe a thing to do before you go to a conference and you hit that opportunity. You're at the grocery store, and maybe I'll make another analogy here. You're going to the grocery store to buy a bunch of food. Do you make a list first? Some people do. They make a grocery list, a shopping list. Here are the things I need to get. If you don't, and you haven't eaten in a while, and you go to the supermarket, you overbuy, you buy things you don't need because you're hungry, and it all looks great, and then you end up wasting food that goes bad before you get to eat it. So having a plan, I think we agree, is a great idea. But how do you refine that plan? And then once you're there at that conference with all these things, and you know you need to look for a few certain categories of products you need to either start buying or replacing or reviewing, how do you then sift through all that and choose? Because even though there's thousands and thousands of vendors, and there might be hundreds that do what you're looking for, can't even talk to those hundreds. So you have to vet them even further and try and sift through and figure out which ones are worth talking to.
Yeah.
Question. What are the main categories you should be vetting?
Yeah.
That could be a whole
Well, I
episode
mean,
in itself.
yeah, I mean, you can talk about all different types of solution types, but to kind of throw the volley back onto your side of the court with the grocery store analogy, when I go to a conference, literally find my friends first. It's kind of like you go into a bar, right? And it's filled with hundreds, if not thousands of people, and you're by yourself. What's the first thing you would do? You go find your friends. And then you talk to them and you socialize and you get updates. And then you kind of venture out and go meet new friends, right? So when you go to a show, I think the MO would be to go to the companies that you know well and go figure out, hey, I got this. What's new? How can we make improvements today? And because let's face it, it takes a lot to think about newer solutions with newer companies when you can have a play within who you're currently working with. There is a lot of consolidation. Nobody has time for all these other companies and all these other solutions. Selfishly at my own company, we have a wide variety of solutions that we provide that a lot of the industry doesn't realize that we provide them. And we like to be the friends that you can come to and we can provide you updates. But if you're, anybody, you would want to go figure out from your friends first. Then you also need to prioritize, okay, I really need to think about how AI affects my network, right? And then you've got to then navigate that. Then you have trusted advisors who can help you navigate that. I went to that booth. I talked to those people. Let me tell you what I think about it. So it's all about navigation. It's all about what you need, and it's all about who you trust.
Yeah, I've been in that role where we've had clients at a conference and I'm there and they're asking me questions. And as an advisor, oh, you know what? I know these guys over here. Let's go talk to them. And I've made some of those introductions. Sometimes it isn't a fit. And that's just as important as finding one that is a fit. Ruling them
Mm-hmm.
out is just as good. But understanding the needs, and that's where, again, an advisor in theory, hopefully, can help guide the client because they know them and they know a little bit more about some of the vendors and can rule some out, add some to the short list. Let's go talk to them, get a demo from this vendor. It definitely can be helpful in sifting through some of the volume.
Well, back to the bar analogy, I think that say I'm going to a bar and I want to have a conversation with somebody new. I'm most likely it's easier and maybe a better fit to have it with whoever my friend brought that I don't know yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, than just a stranger. But I don't know because I talk to everybody. So, uh, but I mean, that does seem like it's like you're gonna talk to that person first before you go mingle. See
That's
who your
right.
friend brought.
These things are
Yeah,
big reunions. Yeah.
Eric has
it's about
ruined me with
comfortability.
analogies. I love him now.
I'm full of them. Just like movie recommendations. You do the
Oh,
same
he
thing.
does that too.
Yeah,
I'm not even going down that path with that one, but yeah, but yeah, the shows are great. Meeting new friends for me is one of the bigger values. It's yes, saying hi to the old guys, saying, "Hey, Faraz, what's new?" And not just with you personally, but that also leads to what's new with Fortra. What are
yeah.
some new acquisitions you made? Because if we get along well and we're already friends, and I didn't know a year ago you didn't have this solution, but now you have this offering, and I
Mm-hmm.
need that thing. I'd rather work with you. And that's often one of the ways you vet through is vendors you're comfortable with. Relationships matter. People you trust and can work with, it's easier to continue working with them. So understanding what they can do as they evolve is sometimes a big simplification of who do I talk to? Talk to those you know, and there's value in that, even in moving forward, not just in staying where you are.
Check in with your friends and check in with your cybersecurity providers.
That's right.
Like,
Advisors,
you know,
friends, hopefully
Yeah,
they're work friends.
see what's new.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, in my experience, the individuals at all these companies, they need help. They are at the show, but then they're later on at the bar, and they're talking and saying, "What do you think? I mean, what was your impression?" And you know what, really, I'm getting worried about this. What did you see? And the people that they rely on the most, again, are the ones that they truly know well, that would be on the vendor side. And then the other ones would be the solution providers that provide kind of like a home contracting. You know, they provide a lot of solutions and they can give you expertise in all the areas of build. Um, and those solution providers' trusted advisor role is invaluable to those customers.
Well, it's not just about choosing the products, but then, and I've seen this often play out where someone buys into a product, great marketing, great product, does good things, but they don't have a plan for success.
Mm-hmm.
That product, anything is going to take a certain amount of care and feeding. It's going to require some maintenance, some administration. Maybe it's an hour a week, maybe it's 2 hours a day. And you need to know that going in before you make that decision to invest in that solution. And you need to have that availability to be able to get value out of the product. So I've had that discussion with many folks of this is great, but understand the not just the costs numerically and dollar wise, but the cost of ownership from a resource perspective. And that varies from solution to solution. Some are going to take more effort than others. And one of the ways to deal with that, like you mentioned, is leveraging service partners. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to purchase this where I don't have to use my time that I don't have, but someone can maintain the product for me. And that's again, not to get salesy, but that's another avenue that often can help lead to that success is buy it as a service or as an overall solution as opposed to just a product that you're going to have to manage yourself. Um,
It,
it
that
opens up
just
new
makes complete
options.
sense.
Um,
I don't want to like wrap this up, but I'm like, I feel like I just answered this. Because it feels very much like what you're saying is find a provider that you trust and you're willing to make the time to invest in that relationship with them. And
Mm-hmm.
if they can't provide something for you or they don't have something new, they can probably recommend somebody who they trust who can.
Yeah.
Circle of
I
trust.
think you're describing friendship. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, those are it's considered business friendship, and that's what we do every day. I mean, in business, I have business friends that have been friends of mine for 20, 30 years, and you build each day, and so that's exactly the way it goes. And what you described, Chelsea, could have been just you, meeting people when on your first day of college and navigating through that over 4 years. Just think about taking that to the next level, but getting real advice.
Right, like that's what I'm like because for me, I come into a lot of these conversations newer to cybersecurity and I wouldn't know where to start on a lot of things. So, I think knowing that if I have a provider I trust, see what they can offer me and then see who they would recommend who do they trust? Who would they recommend if they have something that I can't they can't offer me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't know where to start. So I just think it's an interesting analogy that's actually like yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, we still do it the old fashioned way by talking and reading and whatnot. There's no Bumble or Tinder for this kind of thing to kind of find that great perfect match. Unless there is, and that'd be a great business idea. But
I was like new
um,
business idea, guys.
yeah,
1-800 dentist.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, but even those, they're sponsored. That's dentists who have bought into that are the ones they recommend. It's purely a marketing thing. But there are sometimes, and just the shows themselves are that. The smaller shows where there's only 2 or 3 of each category of vendor there, that there's
yeah,
fewer to talk to. And it's not that they're the best, it's that they've sponsored. And that
yeah,
could be because they're the best and they want to get word out there. But there's various reasons. So just knowing that they're there is
yeah.
one thing, but you have to understand what that means and what it doesn't mean.
Yeah, and so let me pick on one, okay? There's a word that is used and overused in cloud. Okay, you could have a cloud conference, but the word cloud could encompass so many things. And everybody has some element of cloud into their solution. And so you can make that as a blanket statement, but then it's really about what are we talking about with the cloud? And you've got to really break it down further. You could do the same with IAM, identity access management. There's so many different avenues with identity access management. Are we talking basics, or are we talking about, hard coded, exactly zero trust management besides verifying your identity? So it's all about how detail oriented you want to get.
Don't get me started on cloud, because to this day, I'm still convinced the only reason people use the term is that's the icon we used to draw the internet on a whiteboard years ago.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
executives just started referring to the internet as the cloud. All the cloud is the internet. And it's just misused and overused, and it's losing meaning so quickly. But
I'll
to
be
me,
honest.
it's just the internet, which is a lot. Private cloud,
Everybody I know is like, what's a
oxymoron.
cloud?
It's
Yeah.
the internet. But
Yeah.
it's a way of,
I've
it's
always wondered what
not more
happens to the cloud
specialized
if
than
it's a
that.
sunny day. So,
Sure. Yeah, sorry. The internet's down because the clouds are here. I don't know. um, but back to the product vetting, because there's another angle I want to explore here, because one of the other things we've seen is I've got relationships, I've got vendors, I've got things that are working well for me, and I've got these new needs that have evolved because our business changed through acquisition, through new regulations. One of the things I always like to do is again, make people look at what they already have, look at the relationships you already have, the solutions you have. Maybe they can do these things instead of, we have this new challenge. We're just starting a little late, but starting migrating to the cloud. So we need to look at cloud security. So you do a Google search and you find some vendors that have cloud security products. You may already have vendors you're working with and solutions in place that can do that as well. So looking at those first might make a lot more sense, might simplify work for yourself, might not have to meet new friends when you already have a friend that can do that thing. We'll go back to the contracting on your house or whatever. Oh, the electrician's also a plumber. Great. I like the electrician. I don't have to find a plumber and use that. We talk in a similar vein. I'm going to just throw a couple topics out there. That's one of them, but related to that, we hear a lot. I think one of those overused terms is single pane of glass and unification of management and simplification of the footprint and the administration. It's overplayed, but there's value in it. And I think this is just another angle of trying to help figure out what solutions I look at.
To that analogy, our rebuild company is who we use them for other things. And I mean, we've spent like 2 months with these people every day. I feel like they live with us. They like walk around with my pet, like carry my pets and stuff. And we couldn't be happier that we went with who they recommended, because we had a need that they couldn't fulfill, but they had someone they trusted, and there was a ton of value in going with them. Like literally, he baby talks my cats and stuff. So, um, I think go with people you trust before you try to sift through all of the noise that's out there.
yeah. And there's a lot of noise.
So much.
Trust me on that. There's a lot of noise. And some of the marketing speak that you just mentioned, Eric, there's a lot of that too. There's a lot of marketing created categories. But then again, it ultimately boils down to making things easier, simpler, and faster, and being able to comprehend and solve what you're trying to do. And that there is an element of consolidation, and as well as the ability to have it in the single pane of glass, or you can look at it from one view to address multiple items, right? So um, there's a lot to be said about that if it meets what you're trying to do. And in the old days, it was kind of like the boombox effect. Your boombox had the ability to have a radio, a tape recorder, a CD player, and all kinds of things, all built in one, rather than a stereo that had stacks of multiple different things. It made things a lot easier.
It's so
So I
that's another analogy I've used for decades, especially back when we started talking about when I was teaching classes with firewalls, and we introduced the term UTM, Unified Threat Management, where now a firewall can do your antivirus and your URL filtering. And I would talk about the benefits of that. Yes, it simplifies, but it's a matter of, is good enough okay, or do you need best of breed? And I'd use literally the boombox analogy of, this is great. It makes it simple. It's cheap. It works. But then,
Right.
that's maybe for the college student in their dorm room. It's all that fits. It's fine. But then you get a job, you build a media room in your house, and this is again decades ago, and you want to have the best of breed sound system, and you have a receiver and a CD, maybe a laser disc player if I'm really dating myself, but all of these best of breed products from different vendors, because they focus on that and they're the best of it. But that adds additional complexity in getting it wired. You've got a coffee table full of different remotes because each one has their own, and the integration and the use is a little more challenging than that unified approach. And I would always say you need to weigh the options. If it's good enough, it'll make things easier and save you money. But where do you really need to be on that scale of good enough versus best of breed? And
Yeah.
I think that's changed a lot as a lot of the technology continues to advance. And what used to just be good enough, they've gotten better. So a lot of that unified approach is valid as good, not just good enough.
in regard to that, out of curiosity, how much do different vendors actually work together? Like, say you have something to offer, but it's not exactly what your client needs. Do you work with someone who offers it better, and do you recommend them? Like, is this that? How common is this?
It's very common, and you'd be surprised how incestuous our industry is because we utilize tools that other companies have, but when we go to market, the customer has no idea that we're utilizing those tools to help build our product. So we have ingredients from many different sources that we don't quite reveal because you don't want to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
And and so we go at it and go to market as under your own brand. And I'm not speaking about my own company, I'm just talking about the industry in general. And not only do you build products that way, but then you also integrate products with other companies that might be able to do the same thing you do, or they do it a little bit differently, and or address a problem a different way, such as you've got the ability to get into a specific cloud or an area to address a different part of the market that you're not used to providing your solution into. And so that happens all the time, and you just work through it. And if you need to explain how it's done, you certainly can choose to do so.
I think that
It's
whole topic of integrations is a big thing with every vendor. Everyone wants to
Mhm.
know, I have these 2, 3 systems in place that I like, I trust, I don't want to change them. Can you integrate with them and work with them? Or are you such cutthroat competitors of theirs that you refuse to work with them? And I think
Yeah.
that's the anomaly. Normally we find ways, even competing vendors in some categories integrate with each other in other categories because they
Yeah.
kind of have to.
Think about how phone chargers have changed over the past 15 years. There used to be at least 5 different types, right? And then finally, we had to unify on the new one, the USB-C. And even Apple has come around on that. So, like, it depends on how that works. And everybody wanted to pioneer their own. I remember a time when there were like 6 different types, right? And they used to have giveaways on those. So that's an example of kind of coming together. I'm proud of that. I'm happy that that happened.
I will say that's been one of my favorite things about this industry is seeing all of these different companies interact with each other and how well they do so. Everyone is just trying to help each other, trying to come together to do things together. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
a refreshing take on something that I didn't think was going to be the case.
I think another
Yeah.
interesting case of integration and working together. kind of in a weird way. And another topic I want to get to, you mentioned cloud earlier. When you talk about cloud providers, especially at the corporate level, when you start shifting to the big cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they offer a lot of built-in security tools. And there's a lot of integrated, included, free stuff that a lot of organizations take advantage of. And in many cases, they might be good enough, but in almost no cases are they best of breed. And I think we often find that challenge of, oh, I'm using this feature from this provider. Is that good enough? And that's not an easy question. It depends on the customer, on their environment, on their business models. And that adds to some of this confusion over vendors of, I've already got this box checked. Maybe it's not checked in permanent marker. It's not very well checked, but it's checked. Should I just move on and work on other issues? Or is that something I should be looking at improving? And those vendors, those cloud providers, do integrate with those vendors that compete with them. And they're not trying hard to sell you their integrated solution. They're just offering it because they have to have something in that category for their customers.
Yeah. So let me tell you about that. I'm familiar with this, and a lot of those companies, they end up creating opportunities for other companies that do it much better. And the best way for me to describe that is when I first started out, there was Office Coffee, and Office Coffee was free and it was provided and it did the job, right? And then as you kind of want better and best of breed and something that does a little bit more than the job, you discover premium coffee at places like Starbucks and other big companies. And you want the better solution, at least in my case. And then you upgrade over to nitro brew and things like that. So there's a lot of other options to take you there, but that starting point came from what was free and provided, and it did the job.
I was going to say it's like a need being met, and then you deciding how important that need is and how well you need it to be actually taken care of. Is it just met, or is it exceeding it? Is it really taking care of it? Or
I have
meeting
seen
the
too many. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chelsea. I have seen too many examples where a lot of these larger companies create opportunity because they've introduced or they've kind of provided for free tools that companies never considered. And they offered it as like a bundle or something like that. And then people started using it and they go, I can only do so much. And then expert companies come in and provide them, okay, let me take it from here and provide you those solutions. It happens all too often. There have been billion-dollar companies built specifically around that.
I think they do drive innovation and improvement as well, because if they're including a base level version of that product in theirs, and I go back far enough, I can remember when you had to buy a web browser. When it wasn't included in your operating system, you had to buy a browser and install it into Windows. And that got competitive, and then Microsoft builds a browser into Windows, and it got really, there was a lot of lawsuits and back and forth where it was anti-competition to build a browser into the OS. Now nobody's going to buy ours, and then they all just start giving them away. Anyway, not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but there are those solutions that are included often create that opportunity. But then I think there are times where those solutions get better and better, and then the integrated solutions are good enough for everyone, and sometimes it kills that market. And we've seen that happen with some of the things that Microsoft has built into their operating systems. That third-party companies, there was a company called FTP Software 20 plus years ago, and they were doing something Microsoft didn't. Then when Microsoft did it and did it well enough, the company kind of went away or had to shift gears and get into other things. But I think it just drives innovation and continues to force vendors to come up with new ideas and improve things. But again, making it more challenging for the consumer or the buyer to know which is good enough. What do I go with? How do I find that out?
In regard to that, do you think that the bundles, like a free bundle or something like that of that nature, is actually a way to show us the needs of people? Like how many people are needing this, and where do we need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when it comes to bundling, I think there's two schools of thought. One is to legitimately put things together that belong and do it at a value price. And no better example is at a fast food restaurant with the number one. You know, you got the burger, the fries, and the drink, and those all go together. Okay. This other way that you handle bundling is you have something that sells, and then you have something that complements it that you may have never thought about, or the vendor is pushing it because they feel that it goes well, or it is something that they want to expand their business around. And the second one can work, but that's going to take a lot more work. It's going to take a lot more explaining. It's going to take some navigating, and it's going to maybe even need some solution provider help because I'm used to this one thing, but I'm not so sure about what this is all about. Am I going to be into it? You know? And so, yes, of course. The first example, you got to put things together that belong, and you're doing your customers a favor, and they can get it at a value price. Just like again, the number one at McDonald's just sells over and over again.
But it's almost like adding in something else and seeing if it fits is like we're learning about what people's needs are.
Yeah,
Well, I think even if
yeah,
you
and
didn't want the fries, you just wanted a burger and a drink, but the bundle is the same price. You get the fries, you try the fries, you realize, ooh, I like fries. Is that kind of what you're getting at? Sometimes having the bundled good enough thing makes the
Or
case for it and shows you, wow, this is a good thing. Maybe you should explore better versions of this.
yeah, maybe now every time that I want my burger, I, I want fries too. Because if I don't have it, I'm disappointed. Like, but if you don't introduce kind of a bundle, maybe we don't learn what it is.
Well, I think that's often what it is they will bundle something to try and promote it and get you to try it. Here's like free samples. Try this free sample of this thing, realize how amazing it is and how much you want it. And now you're going to become a customer and you're going to buy more of these.
right, yeah, and that's it. When you're introducing a new product, when you're introducing something that you do feel is going to help customers, you can put it in as part of a bundle because it helps the main product helps sell the other one, and customers, it eases customers into that journey, and in a cool way, and so in a thinking positively, that really can help boost customer awareness and the solution in itself. Sometimes it can, you know, putting in, say edamame along with a burger, it may not work. So who knows?
Well, I was just thinking like a McDonald's burger goes better with McDonald's fries than Wendy's fries. You know what I mean? I would rather have McDonald's fries with my McDonald's burger
Yeah,
than go to Wendy's and get their fries. So I think a bundle is a very smart thing. It flows better together.
absolutely.
Absolutely. I did we lose Eric?
You lost my camera. I'm still
Oh,
here, but you lost my camera. I'll work on fixing it. All this has been great, but I do want to kind of see if we can arrive at an answer to that question. I think we came up with a bunch of them. There's different angles, different things we can do to try and simplify that task of sifting through the noise and getting through vendors and prioritizing is the beginning of it. Get your priorities in order, understand which problems you should be solving first, and then you've at least eliminated a lot of that noise and gotten down to the problems you really, really need to solve or should be solving first. And then within that, I think we came up with some other answers of how to vet, leverage the partners you already have, leverage the vendors you already have, solutions you have, get the most you can out of them. What other answers did we kind of uncover or thoughts?
I feel like I have an answer for people who are not cybersecurity experts. It is like everything else in life. If you have a problem, go to the people you trust first, see where they can help you. Maybe they'd have some options for you, and then see what trusted resources they maybe have, and then go find other sources if they don't have any. That's kind of my takeaway from that.
Yeah, and I think both of you are correct. I think we've derived at the same points. I mean, there is a need to work through your existing network and existing vendors and customers because you trust them, you know them, and you actually want to hear their opinions, and it matters.
Yep.
And oftentimes you may not realize that they may provide more than what you're used to them providing. And if you already have an established relationship, you trust them to provide more for you. So, and again, there's a big consolidation play in general because nobody can navigate this, in having so many different point solutions. They don't have the ability and employees to be able to manage it. And so that's where you need the help.
And I mean, I'm looking at it as somebody who, like, say my dad for his own company or something, like he would have no idea where to start with this. And it's like, find somebody you trust,
Mm-hmm.
work with them, see what else they can offer you. If you need more, you need more from them, and then see what they recommend. And then start sifting through all of the research you have to do because there's so many options.
I think that's a common answer is leverage assistance, leverage help. There's help out there to be had. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my other question that I want to resolve is how many analogies did we use today?
58.
Well, let's see.
I don't know too many.
The supermarket, the home, honey-do list and housework, fast food. We're going to have to start a counter of analogies and
We love analogies on this show.
Looks like I'm the right guest to have because
you started them. You brought them up before I did. It was great. Normally, I'm the one bringing them up.
Yeah. I remember specifically in our discovery call, you brought up the steering wheel thing, and you made an analogy about, you need to stay up to date with what is actually securing stuff now. And I was like, Eric is loving this, like, because he loves an analogy, and it's rubbing off, and I don't like that about me. But
she's assimilating.
Yeah. Don't forget about the bar. About going into a bar.
Oh yes, the bar.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are we at, 5 then?
4 or 5 at least. Anyway.
This is our top one.
But I do think they help. They're a great tool because people can relate to and understand things and think about them a little bit differently, which is a big thing I like to do is if it's not working, change your perspective, change the way you think about things and convey it a different way. And I love analogies for it. But again, I think we think too alike. For us, it was great.
I think it's very beneficial for somebody like me who I'm not an expert. But hearing it, simplified into real life, it makes it so much more understandable, and you understand why it's important, And so I think it's beneficial for people like me to hear these conversations and know what to focus on and what. I think it just helps everyone, why you should be interested.
Yeah. Just think back to your house and the construction, and don't forget the smoke detectors. But also, you can put in anything you like, but prioritize it.
Don't neglect leaking roof.
Well, I just want it to be done.
That's right, a leaky roof. Mm-hmm.
We have a new roof, so
excellent.
But I do think I think that's so beneficial.
Yep. So that's what we're here to do is simplify and help think about things differently. And you were very helpful in doing that for us. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yes.
We'll talk again soon, but thanks so much for being here. Any parting words or thoughts?
No, I feel blessed that both of you asked me to join. It was great to talk to you, Eric and Chelsea. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
A lot of
Good.
fun. We could have gone for another hour, but I don't think so.
I'd love to.
That's we would too. Unfortunately, we are like that, talkers. But no, it has been a pleasure having you on. And if you have any more analogies for us, please send them our way. We love them.
Will do.
Well, with that, Chelsea, I think we don't have a concise answer to how to deal with the abundance of solutions, but we had a bunch of sub answers and ideas on how to help deal with it. So can we
We
consider?
got pretty close to an answer this time.
Not bad. We did some splaining, which was
We did some splaining.
and we'll do some more next time.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And I will see you next time, Eric.
You too. Stay safe.